As a student, what is the saddest thing you have found out about your teacher? When I was in second grade, my favorite teacher, Mr. K, took off in the middle of class one day when he got a phone call on his cell. I remember wondering why he was picking up his phone, which usually never rang, and don't recall ever seeing him answer a phone call before. I watched him as he reached into his pocket and he pulled out his phone. The next part always plays like a movie in my head. I remember his face going from mildly concerned to completely washed out and drained. It was a matter of seconds when Mr. K turned around and ran out of the classroom. At this time, we had a second backup teacher. We called Mrs. S. Mrs. S. took over the class immediately. We weren't told anything. We just sat there with confusion. Mrs. S. was pretty stern, but I didn't have problems with that. I was concerned for Mr. K. After about 3 weeks, Mr. K returned. He came to visit. We all flocked to him to say hi and make sure he was okay. He took turns greeting us. When I finally reached him through the crowd, I grabbed his hand as he pulled me in for a hug. My normally warm teacher was cold. I knew something was wrong. He looked me in the eye and smiled. I asked if he was okay. He smiled and said he would be fine. I didn't buy it for a second. Later, I found out that his mother had been in the hospital, and the call he got was the hospital telling him that his mom was either deceased or dying. When he started teaching again the following month or two, he wasn't the same. He wasn't as vibrant. He wasn't as funny. He wasn't as authentic or even loving. It was like all the warmth in his body left him that day, and what was left was a functioning robotic shell. I graduated, and he told me that I was one of his favorite students, albeit a bit of trouble, but a good student. Years later, I saw him at the grocery store and called out to him. He smiled at me and gave me a hug, and I held his hand again to check. I had to know if my teacher was back. He wasn't. He was cold as ice. His smile was passable. He looked worn and tired. His eyes screamed for something that I didn't know. I always remembered that, and to this day, I never got to tell him that he was loved. He was a great man, and not just a great teacher. If I had a dad, I would want him to be it, and that means a lot to me because I've lived 19 years without a male figure, and having a strong distrust of men. He deserved better. I always hoped he would find love, but I don't think he ever was with somebody, as far as I could tell. I hope somewhere that he is happy and safe and loved, and I hope he's warm. Bro's the main character's sensei that has a dark, twisted past. I wonder what happened to him.